Hey Mac, let's take a look at your final project here. There, there don't feel like there are, a huge amount of changes being made from the last version to this version. I think that there's some cropping things obviously that are being made. And a few adjustments, especially to the face itself, which I think are actually for the better. It feels more, refined and kind of fleshed out. I think the overall composition, even in the last assignment, it was good. It had, all the things that we had kind of dealt with in the class, like the texture, working with colors and values, dealing with a certain amount of a process in place, and having just kind of in general a solid amount of compositional stuff like perspective and having a good focal point and that sort of stuff. So I feel like even in this last version it was working out pretty well, and I think the detail enhancements are definitely something that are an improvement. The figure stands out to me a lot more. There's a lot more contrast in him than what we were seeing before. Shadows tend to be a little bit deeper and darker. The facial elements help. The line work is a little bit stronger around the figure. So he comes forward a lot more, and the background tends to push a little bit further back. I'm not sure I agree with the change that came with the cropping, though. I like this version here where it feels a little bit wider. I especially like being able to see the fullness of the beam, and a little bit of space in between the beam and the side of the paper, as well as kind of having a little bit more space on the left side between the shield and sword and the edge of the page there. It feels a little bit more open, for as open as a corridor that looks like it's several feet underground can be. And I think here it tends to feel a little too abrupt. It just kind of ends, especially on the right side. It just ends very, very quickly. And I think it tends to work a little bit better in this regard. I think the other thing is that there aren't a huge amount of changes being made from the last assignment, which is fine to a certain extent, but I think from the iterations that have been made from the first time to now, it doesn't feel like it makes quite as big of a leap as maybe kind of I was expecting. Although that's my expectations. That's again, like I had said before, it had been in a good place in the last time that we saw this. So not making changes is not a huge a huge deal, but I think I was expecting to see more there. But it is what it is. I think a lot of kind of losing steam with these final projects is that you deal with it a lot, and whether you have kind of additional pressures at home to deal with is just kind of going to compound that. But I mean, think about how many times you've drawn this. You had the thumbnail, and then you had 4 color studies to do, and you had another version to do after that, and then you were being asked to draw another one. So that's 7 versions of the same composition, which can, in any situation, really, really kind of wear on your overall kind of being able to just kind of get into a certain amount of kind of wanting to do this. So I think that's maybe one thing that you may not need to be blaming yourself so much on how kind of the final part of this went. I think a lot of it's just kinds of that people run out of steam after they draw something so many times. I think some other things like change in the point of view, some of the angles, the composition adjustments could be made, but that would be a total kind of revision. I think that's something else that might actually kind of freshen it up. But I think it works out well. I think, cropping issues kind of aside, it's still a very strong final that has a lot of good color, a lot of great texture work, and dealing with a composition that I think is both kind of very straightforward but also very complex.